Of a row over climate change data has stepped down from his post as research director at the University of East Anglia in England. Professor Phil Jones is accused of manipulating data after his emails were hacked into and leaked on the internet. He says he will stand aside while an independent review is carried out. And our London correspondent, Laura Emmett, who's been following this story, joins us now live. Hello there, Laura. So what does the investigation involve?
Well, Julia, it's not clear exactly what the investigation will involve at the moment, but what we do know is that it's going to look closely into the university and the climate change research unit's involvement and cooperation with the Freedom of Information Act. The emails that, as you say, have been leaked suggest that the university hasn't cooperated fully with the Freedom of Information Act and that it's been suppressing crucial data. The other thing that it's going to look at is the status of its data security. Obviously, they're keen to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. And they're also going to look into what they call other relevant issues, but again, it's not really clear what they will be. Another thing that they're going to do is make all their data public. The university says that 95% of the information and the research that it produces is already available on the internet, but it's going to look into that other 5% and make sure that the general public have access to that information. But what we don't know yet is how long the investigation will be, who will lead it. Those pieces of information will be announced, according to the university, within days. It's also not clear what the legal implications of this investigation will be, but if possibly it becomes clear that the suppression of information was linked with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, then that could have quite serious implications for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and also for the process at the important Copenhagen summit, which is coming up next week, and the legal decisions that are taken on that basis. So we'll have to follow that quite carefully, Julia.
Yeah, so many questions indeed. But what have climate change deniers have to say about this?
Well, I think the university is standing by the data that it's produced, and it says it's still valid despite Professor Jones stepping down. But this is really a victory for climate change sceptics in a way. They're calling it a victory for science. They're saying that it's a positive development in what they call the politicisation of science. They say that scientists, climate change scientists, are merely activists who are manipulating data in order to achieve a political goal, and they say that this is evidence of a conspiracy theory, effectively, to manipulate data to support the research. Earlier on, I spoke to Lord Christopher Monckton, who is a prominent climate change sceptic in the UK, and he said that he thought that Professor Jones would be the first of many involved in climate change research to stand down. He says that finally this has woken up the general public and the political class to this small group of scientists who are effectively tampering with data, hiding and concealing the evidence and blocking the results from being available to the public. And of course they're doing that on the taxpayer's dime, and that's something else that he's quite concerned with. He says that this will hopefully lead to a proper investigation, possibly the standing down of the UN climate panel, and also that the Copenhagen conference, in the light of this, should be called off. There's a US senator elsewhere in the world who's called for a proper Senate investigation into these emails, and that could have far-reaching policy implications in terms of the US. And of course, it's not just climate change sceptics who will be pleased about this. We learnt last week that George Monbiot, who's a leading climate change activist, was also calling for Professor Jones's resignation. So I think across the board, anyone involved in climate change will be quite pleased about this.
All right, Laura Emmett reporting there live from London. Laura, many thanks indeed.